Hey there! I'm going to talk to you about a few exam strategies that can help you maximize your marks when you are taking an exam. Have you ever taken a test and felt overwhelmed, lost, or in a state of panic? Well, you're not the only one. There are hundreds of students out there who feel negatively towards their exams, and for many different reasons. Many of the complaints I get from students come from different aspects of learning, and some of them span from the material not being covered in class or simply that they just don't understand. So in this video, I want to help you overcome the barriers we all face as test takers and get you on the road to success. Amongst the many complaints, the most common is that there is not enough time to do the actual exam or that there are too many questions. Unfortunately, as a student, this is not within your control. Test makers can often underestimate the amount of time a learner will take to answer a question. They often pile on questions with increasing difficulty on top of that. The strategy we will be covering will hopefully address this topic in maximizing the amount of marks per time spent writing the exam. But before we move on, let's talk about the types of questions you will be coming across during an examination. In a typical test, there are a hierarchy of questions examiners can ask the students, belonging to what's called Bloom's taxonomy: recall, understanding, application, analysis, evaluation, and synthesis. Recall questions are the simplest, like who is the author of a particular book, and what is the wavelength of the color red. More thinking and thus difficult questions are higher up in this ladder, such as understanding, application, evaluation, and analysis. For example, a question like, explain the significance of the War of 1812 and how it impacted colonialism. The highest level of cognitive difficulties come at synthetic questions. These questions engage the learners in all levels of thinking and will involve all the levels below it. For example, asking a student to create a plausible solution to lowering carbon emissions in the Pacific Ocean will require them to understand and analyze the implications of their suggestions and how it will affect real-world policies and environmental factors. Great, we just now covered Bloom's taxonomy. The next time you take an exam, consider the difficulty of the test by comparing the questions to this hierarchy. Next, we will talk about the format of the exam itself and how these questions are asked. Tests are generally divided into 6 blocks: multiple choice, true or false, fill in the blanks, matching, picture analysis, essays, both short and long. Now, if we start matching question types with the hierarchy of Bloom's taxonomy, it might be clear to us that some question types will belong to a particular process. We can match recall with any of the lower level of cognitive functions, while higher level difficulties may be predominant in essay questions. At this point, we have covered the different levels of difficulty in a question and how these questions can be asked. Now let's talk a little bit about mark distribution of an exam. A typical exam is built from easy to difficult questions and often starts off with multiple choice or fill in the blanks. These are often awarded single marks, and the marking scheme lies on whether the student has filled in the correct bubble or word. Essay questions can be found near the end and are often weighted more, ranging anywhere from 4 to 10 marks. Essay questions will involve a lot more recall processes to answer and will also consume a lot more time. There are some strategies out there that will mention to do the easy questions first and then go into the harder questions. In this way, you will get a ramp up and get a momentum in your tests. This is a good technique, but I often find that students will spend a lot of time answering the first few questions and leaving the last part of the test blank due to time constraints. Leaving out the analysis or synthesis questions can be detrimental, as often markers and teaching assistants cannot tell if the student really knows the answer to the questions, or if they are simply guessing in their multiple choice. I suggest that in order to maximize the marks per time spent writing in an exam, you should start with the highest level of difficulty and work your way backwards. Writing an essay out with sufficient time to think and to consider might get you full marks worth just as much as the entire multiple choice section itself. If you are running out of time, writing A, B, C, or D gives you a chance to get the answer correctly, whereas drafting an essay in that short amount of time would not likely to get you any marks. To summarize, tests are stressful for everyone, and if you have a test-taking strategy that works for you, then by all means, keep going with it. For anyone else in need, just remember the types of questions they can ask you and where the marks are mostly distributed. If you give yourself enough time, you should have no problem in your next exam. Thank you for listening in.